Good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to all delegates and coaches joining us globally. We are here today for a very interesting session. Personal and professional growth, reframing narratives through coaching. I'm sure this topic will touch all of you emotionally and also create more impact for rest of your life. This is because this session will cover and address some of the very key things which an individual can transform himself. It addresses some of the questions where do you feel a sense of imbalance in your life? Are you struggling to juggle career and family priorities? Do you wish to improve your personal life or career pursuits? Do you need support to power your dreams? Are you unsure where and how to start to examine these aspects? And then, most certainly, engaging a professional coach is what we recommend to discover answers and solutions residing with you. We are very happy to announce that this session actually will have the best coaches who are globally have huge experience and also have taken their own life narrative, how they actually got through various hurdles in their life to become a successful coach. And there's going to be an experience session here where they'll be narrating their own stories as well. For this session, we have two speakers for doing a power talk, Pat Matthews and Ramji Vallath. So first to start with, I would like to introduce Pat Matthews, who is our first speaker. Pat is dedicated to supporting leaders as they build productive partnerships, teams, and workplaces. She served as a program director of Georgetown University Executive Coaching Program and as a founding member of Georgetown University Institute of Transformational Leadership, and has coached and supported leaders in corporate, government, and non-profit sectors. She has worked immensely with the state governments of all parts of US and have been pioneer in contributing in the area of coaching and developing a lot of leaders in the US. Inducted into ICF Circle of Distinction in 2019, she is the co-author of recently highly acclaimed book, Professional Coaching Competencies, The Complete Guide, and contributing author on becoming a leadership coach. Pat currently serves as a chair of the ICF Global Enterprise Board. Over to you, Pat. I will look forward to your session.
Thank you so much. And it's a real pleasure to be here and to, be part of this really wonderful, wonderful conclave Coaching for Growth. And so my part of this is going to be around three things. I'm going to first talk about reframing and what it is and how I learned about it as a person and as a coach. Then I'm going to talk about the concept of story, that our narrative, our story, guides the way we live, the way we work, and how we can reframe those stories to be successful. And then the last thing I'm going to share is a client case study in which all of these things kind of come together. I'll be sharing how that went, and hopefully you'll be able to take some of those learnings into your own life, if you're a coach, into your own coaching. So first, I'd like to say, when you have children, at least for me, I believed I had a lot to teach children. My children, I have two sons. What I didn't realize is how much they had to teach me. And so my reframing story is my younger son. His name is Mark. When he was a teenager, he did competitive sailing. He did a lot of sailing on different vessels, and it turned out that he was part of a group of four young people who entered the national competition for sailing. And he, in order to get to the nationals, they had to go through the local, they had to go through the state, they had to go through the regional, and they had to win at every level before they were one of 10 teams to make it to the national championship. And that's a big a big deal, a big honor. And, these are young folks. And so they went to the national championship. They went up against 10 teams. And at the end of 3 days of sailing, they finished 10th. And the young man who was the skipper of the team, he says, "Oh man, this is awful. We finished last. It's we worked so hard and we're last." And my son, without any kind of coach, right? He said, "What do you mean? We're the 10th best in the country." Now, if that isn't a really great example of reframing, I don't know what is. And he taught me that basically. When you think about the two stories that these young people had, which one gives them more choices? Which one allows them more joy, more power, more control, really? And both are true. Both are true. So which one do they choose? And I'm pleased that my son chose the one that said we're the 10th best in the country. There was a lot of pride with that. So that's the idea of reframing. How do you look at a situation and think about the story you're holding about that situation, the narrative that you have about it, and think about, is that the only way I can look at it? Is that true? And both of those stories that I just told you about the reframing are true. Both of them are true. And which one would you choose? Which one did Mark choose? So everybody's got a story. We all live in our stories or our narratives, and we become quite attached to them. The term confirmation bias, what that means is that our brains will actually look for the evidence that proves our narrative true, or that proves our story true to us. And therefore, we get stuck. We can get stuck in that story. We can get quite attached. I like to say that my job as a coach is to be a story buster, is to partner with a client to enlarge the view that they might have, that they might hold about their story. And it's about the person, not the problem itself. It's about how that person is viewing the story that they're in, and how they might choose an alternative. So I'm going to give you an example now of a client that I had. And I do, as my introduction said, I do mostly leadership and executive coaching. And people say, well, are you a life coach? Are you an executive coach? Are you a leadership coach? I primarily work with leaders, and yet every leader I know has a life also. So, every coaching has part of being part of life. And so in this case, this was a mid-40s woman, my client, and she had the job as the chief financial officer in a healthcare organization. The rest of the executive team were male. She was the only woman on the team. And the CEO of the organization was a past client of mine. And he contacted me and he said, I have a team member and she's wanting to have some coaching. So, I met with her and took her on as a client. So let me tell you what her story was at the beginning when we first started working together. Her story was the CEO had it against her, didn't like her. The rest of the team didn't think she was competent enough to be the chief financial officer. They didn't like her. They thought she was difficult. They didn't think she was a good listener. And so I did this was her story. I did some 360 interviews to find out what really people did think. And sure enough, some of them did feel that way. And actually, most of them felt that way. So she had some accurate data coming her way, and that story was, I guess, that was how she was choosing to live in her position, which reinforced that they thought she was difficult, reinforced that you know, the idea that they didn't like her, etc. So now we have some data. I know what her story is. I know what other people are actually saying about her. She's vulnerable. And what is her goal in this coaching agreement? What I find is when I ask my clients what their goals are at the beginning, and she wanted to grow in her position. Here's the personal and professional growth. She was looking more at the professional than the personal, let me say. She wanted somebody to fix the problem. And as you know, as coaches, that's really not our role. The role really in all of my clients' cases, and certainly in this one, is using the core competencies of coaching, which includes powerful questions and direct communication, etc. I am interested in partnering with the client for the client to see his or her role in the issue. We're not fixed. The problem is the problem, but how am I approaching it? And so some of the kinds of questions that I used with this client were things like, how does the challenge you're facing, what does it stir up inside of you? So, and I'll give you a couple of the other questions, but my point is, for growth, for let's talk personal and professional growth, right? That's the title of our session here. For growth, the person needs to really reframe the issue. The problem may not be solved or go away, but the way the client approaches it, the story the client holds about it, that's the thing that we're working on for transformation. So I also ask a question like, how do you wish you could be experiencing this team you're on? What would you like it to be like, right? What does it reveal about you in this situation? What has to change for you to be able to, inside you, for you to be able to deal with this better? What new belief might be necessary for you? And then we get to, how would this change the story you're holding about this? So how did it proceed? Pretty tough. There were points where I thought, why did I do this? Where is this going? Because she was really holding tightly onto her story. Where the breakthrough came for her was with questions in regard to her family life, her health, her, I guess I would say, mindfulness or break from work. And what she discovered inside of herself is that she really didn't like this job. She had high blood pressure. She wasn't giving her all to her son. Here's where the personal, the life part comes in. She wasn't giving her all to her son. She didn't really want to be part of the team, as it turned out. And she was fighting so hard to prove herself that she could do the job, that it was coming across as being difficult, being a know-it-all, being, what have you. And so we worked together for about 9 months. And in that 9 months, she had real transformation in terms of what did she really want to do? How important was her family to her? How important was her health to her? Did she really want to fight every day in the situation that she was in? Now, it could have turned the other way, right? She actually resigned from the job, found another job. Her first employer employed me as her coach through that transition and into finding another job. And it turned out to be, I would say, probably one of the more rewarding clients that I had, and really around reframing the story, reframing what she was holding to be true, and what possibilities did that open for her, or what possibilities did that close for her. If you ask me what I thought was the question, or I don't have the perfect question by any means, but I think a breakthrough came for her when we did a kind of guided meditation, and she was able to sit back and think about her health and her breathing and her joys in life, which were not on the job. So I guess my message to you today is that we can always choose to reframe. We can always examine our story within whatever issue that we're facing. We may not be able to change the issue, but we can change the way we look at it. We can choose to grow through it versus, being stuck in that particular story. So as I close my part of today, and we'll have time for questions later, I will say that I am always reading something, and it isn't necessarily always coaching books, and I'm always noticing reframing or potential coaching questions being used in formats other than coaching sessions. So I want to give you two resources. One's a resource and one's something I noticed in the newspaper the other day that I thought was really pretty interesting. The reference I'd like to give you is by a man named Warren Berger, and he wrote a book called A More Beautiful Question. It's not a coaching book, and I think it's absolutely wonderful for any of us who are in the place of examining our own lives, examining our own personal growth, in the process of reframing how we look at our life or our job or anything, our health, the world out there. So speaking of the world out there, the last thing I want to mention is I read a lot of newspapers, and I read the New York Times every day. And about 3 days ago, or maybe 4, I don't actually remember the actual day, a woman by the name of Preya Parker, who's the author of The Art of Gathering, and she also does a podcast for the New York Times called Together Apart. Her article was, "How should we meet and who decides?" And it was all about, do we go back to the workplace or not? Or do we continue being virtual, or, given all the constraints that the pandemic has had on us? And she said, if we are asking the question of people, do they want to return to the office? She said, we're asking the wrong question. Instead, she had 4 questions, and I'm going to read these. The first question was, what did you long for when you couldn't meet physically? Second is, what did you not miss and could be discarded? The third question is, what did you invent during the pandemic that surprisingly, out of necessity, worked? And the fourth question is, what might we experiment with now? And so you can see that's changing the narrative or the story, simply asking, you know, should we come back or not? Well, that's a yes or no answer. But these questions, these 4 questions that she posed in this article, open up a different narrative, a different way to reframe the issue of going back to the office and certainly getting more information. So I thought I would leave you with her 4 questions, and I will finish my part now and turn it over to my colleague Ramji, and look forward to our question and answer session afterwards. So thank you. I've really enjoyed being with you.
Thank you, Pat. I think last 21 minutes, you almost taken us the essence of personal and professional narrative with some beautiful examples. Some of the things which I picked up in your narrative is sort of individuals sort of understanding that there is an opportunity to actually change the adversity into prosperity, correct? And try to understand that important joy, which brings the joy. That was one of the example, and people have to identify that important joy's destination and then try to reframe themselves. You also touched upon the fact that the personal is very important. While we also talk about professional, the personal reframing focus is very important. Since you have closed the talk within the time, there is one question which has come up on your topic, which I would like to take up straight away.
Yes.
It is from Vinita Joseph. So one of the questions which has come is, I just read that, I marked it with my thing. How do we differentiate between narratives and intuition? Does one lead to the other? That's the question.
Yeah, well, narrative, whatever narrative or story you hold can either be an entry into a more inclusive way of being or a more inclusive workplace or whatever, or not. So, you know, depending on the narrative or the story that you hold about what's going on around you, or about differences, or about ethnicity or whatever, definitely can either get in the way of inclusion, right? Or can, you know, foster it. So it's hugely important. I think you're really touching on something that's hugely important there.
All right. So thank you very much, Pat. And now I'm really proud to introduce Ramji Vallat. Ramji's Vallat story itself is a very inspirational story. When I was reading his biodata, and I was so impressed, actually inspired by his journey of whole transformation within himself. Ramji is much sought keynote speaker, TEDx speaker, and best-selling author. An alumnus of IIT XLRI, he has to give up his highly successful corporate career and reinvent his life due to a crippling disorder. Today, Ramji aims to touch 1 million lives positively, and we all can be very honored to his presence here. Over to you, Ramji.
Thank you so much, Arvindan. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, so the honor is completely mine. I have delivered over 100 keynote addresses, but I have never addressed such an august gathering before. A gathering of gurus who have actually been enabling and empowering people across the world. So thank you so much, and good evening, good afternoon, and good morning to all of you too. So the topic for me today is actually very interesting because it's intertwined with something which I believe in. It's a philosophy that I carry, and I'm going to share that philosophy with you. So forgive me if mostly my presentation is going to be there. So the philosophy is something which I've been sort of chasing for the last 1 decade or so, something which I've been trying to build for myself. It's called Be Boundless. And it's very closely intertwined with the theme of today's discussion, which is reframing narratives through coaching. And I'll actually share my story with you so that you will understand why this has been extremely important for me, reframing of narratives. And there were 2 or 3 coaches who have substantially helped me make this happen. But first, let me define to you what my belief, what a coach is. A coach is a person who helps you paint the greatest masterpiece using the palette of colors that life has gifted you. Not gifted you. And I believe life is a gift. And it's incumbent upon all of us to maximize life to the maximum possible extent. So let me now start off on a little bit of story about myself. I come from Kerala. I studied in a very small village called Mulamentum. It had only a Malayalam medium government school, so I studied in that school, which had a 20% pass percentage in the 10th grade. So I was in the top 20% luckily, and I managed to graduate from SSLC. Never spoken a sentence in English till I came to my engineering. Thanks to studying in such a small village without any comparison, anybody to compare myself with, I had to actually go about managing my own life. Now, my father was also clear that I shouldn't have a tuition. So I managed to actually become very good at solving my own problems, physics and math, actually, but solving my own problems. And that, I think, is the reason that I managed to get into IIT with a rank which is very close to 100 out of about 3 lakh people who appeared for the entrance exam. And then I went on from there. I finished IIT, then did my MBA at XLRI. And my career actually just took off like a rocket. At the end of 6 years, at the age of 29, I had become the country head of a multinational company. I was a country manager, and my salary had actually grown 10x in those 6 years. So I was very ambitious, very driven, and I had this great ambition for myself. And that's my first narrative about myself, is that I exist because I had to add maximum value to myself. I thought that is my purpose in life, to make as much money as possible, as early as possible in life, be right at the top of my class, be the number one in terms of salary, in terms of position, in terms of power. And I did everything that I could to do that. After this, I got a job as head of sales and marketing for a new circle which was being set up by Airtel. That was the Tamil Nadu circle, and I became the general manager sales and marketing there. And I was driven by ambition, so I set this major target for the company, saying that in the first 100 days, we'll get 100,000 acquisitions. It's a very difficult task at that time, in those days when telecom was really expensive. And I drove every team member to make that happen. And I did not give a damn about other functions like customer care or network or collections or finance. All my people were driven to do this. And I was the senior most in the circle. So I could really do that. I could really ride roughshod over everybody else. At the end of that 1 year, we had achieved nowhere near close to that 100,000, primarily because none of the other functions were being enabled by my own function. So we had poor customer care because we couldn't handle the number of customers, poor network, and that created another issue. Massive collectibles which had to be written off. So at the end of the 1 year, we had to write off about 80% of our revenue as bad debts. And the loss was about 10 times the revenue that we made. And that's when the first coaching intervention happened from my boss. His name was, he had just taken over as my boss as CEO of the Southern India. And his name was Swami. And he spent time with me trying to understand and ask me the right kind of questions to figure out what is going wrong. And then he changed me. He helped me for the first time reframe my narrative. And my narrative from I need to add maximum value to myself became I need to add maximum value to the organization. Now, this change in my attitude and my focus resulted in a huge change for the circle. So rather than just focusing on sales, I started helping all the other enabling functions, whether it was customer care or finance or HR or network, IT. And we became truly a team where me being the senior most person was able to actually enable all of them to do their job better. And right enough, the revenue started pouring in and the profitability increased. And that's possibly why in a matter of 2 years, I became the youngest chief operating officer in the telecom industry in the country. And I really want to thank that first coach, my boss, who really enabled this reframing of narrative for me. So at 34, I was the youngest chief operating officer in India's telecom industry, youngest circle head. And I had this great ambition to become a CEO of a Fortune 500 company by the time I became 45. And I thought that was very easily within my grasp. And I went after it. But unfortunately, when you have these great ambitions is when fate sneaks up behind you and gives you a solid kick in the backside. For me, that kick started as a small tremor in my hands every time I tried to pick up a spoon or a fork or a pen, and loss of balance every time I tried to climb up or down stairs. And this kept getting worse. Over the next 7 years, this condition kept getting progressively worse. Till at the age of 41, I had a fever, and the fever spiked the condition, and I was completely paralyzed. I could not move my hands or legs even 1 centimeter. Couldn't even keep my eyes open because the eyelids would keep dropping. My voice had completely lost its ability to come out, and I was wheeled to the hospital. And then the doctors figured out I have what is called an autoimmune disorder. My own immune system, the guys who were supposed to protect me from enemies or germs, was attacking my own peripheral nerves. And that meant that a lot of muscles were not getting any impulses by the nerves, and many of my muscles had already completely wasted away. But the doctor put me on the right kind of medication. Over the next 6 days, he put 6 lakh worth of medicines into me. It was a very expensive medication for this treatment. But at the end of that 1 week after that, I became much, much, much better. Unfortunately, within 45 days, the condition came back. And obviously, I could not keep spending 6 lakhs on my body every 45 days. So I had to resort to having steroids. Extremely expensive, not at all expensive, but with having huge amount of side effects. I put on about 20 kilos in a matter of about a year. I started losing my eyesight because the steroids put some kind of a coating in the lens of the eye. And worst, in spite of all that, I was in extremely bad shape. And this is what I used to look like in those days. I would keep tripping and falling. I had to have a crutch in my hand all the time. And I was handling a very intensely operational role. I was a director of operations for HP India. I had to keep traveling. Sometimes I would go to the US or Singapore, etc., and the jet lag would catch up. And I had to maybe get up at 5 in the morning to attend a meeting at 8 because it would take me about 90 minutes to put on the 6 buttons of my shirt. And life was living hell. But this is when, again, I was able to reframe the narrative. Rather than look at all the issues that I was having in life, I looked at what can I do to make myself feel better. I realized the one thing that I can do is to just immerse myself in the work. I would take on additional responsibilities. In fact, I took on 2 or 3 additional roles, project head, a Six Sigma head, all those, so that I would keep myself completely occupied and I would feel wonderful that I'm adding as much value as possible to the organization. Remember, that is my narrative, right? So while I was adding value to the organization, I was feeling wonderful. And every day I would get up wanting to get back to office. And every week, Monday morning, I would look forward to getting to the office. Till that Monday morning when I actually said, I put it on Facebook saying that looking forward to a great week at work. Yoo-hoo. And I reached office and the first call I got was from my boss in Singapore. It was to tell me that I was being sacked. I was being sacked for some random reason which has been there for some time. Very unfair and completely ridiculous. But such was life. I remember sitting in that conference room after the call and I was shell-shocked. I just couldn't believe it. And I sat there and I cried. And then my wife came to the office, took me back home. And for about 3 hours, I was really feeling depressed. That was the first time I was feeling so depressed in life. I was thinking, I could barely walk. There's no way I can walk into an interview and get a job. I had 2 wonderful kids who needed to be educated and I had so many dreams for them. Now, who's going to pay for all that? My wife had a fantastic job, but that's not enough, right? I mean, we both were working and I needed to continue doing that. So again, I reframed the narrative. I said, well, this is possibly the great opportunity to figure out what else I can do, leveraging the strengths that I have. And I knew that I had tremendous amount of strengths, right? I had held a P&L, I had handled things like HR and customer care, etc. directly as a head of that. And I knew about business. I could paint great pictures and visions for people. I could motivate people. And somebody like me would be ideal for a startup company who needed highly experienced people. So I reached out to 2 startup companies. And by the end of that day, the day I was sacked, by the end of the day, I had 2 jobs in hand. And I took one of them. So that was how reframing the narrative really helped me. That rather than looking at it as a problem, I looked at it as a solution, as an opportunity, and looked for a solution. Again, I was looking for another solution for my illness, and I wanted to get the damn thing away. I wanted to actually become better, fix my body. And I knew that I had to take matters into my own hands because nobody could own my life as much as I did myself. And the doctor may not be the best person to guide me. He knew only one particular type of treatment. I had to explore other things. And one of the things I explored and found out was that in the US, there was a treatment. A doctor was meeting out a treatment for people with different kind of autoimmune disorders. There's a clinical trial. There's a chance of death. And I was the 19th patient who went through that treatment worldwide. It rebooted my body. They actually killed the entire immune system using chemo and some other extracts from rabbit and rat and stuff like that. And then they restarted my immune system using my own stem cells. And at the end of the treatment, I was feeling a lot better. I told myself that I'm going to fix my body now. So I actually created a chart, 27 exercises for the next 180 days. For each date, for each exercise, I put a number, a target. And I kept driving myself to actually reach those numbers every day. Every week, the target would go up and I would hit those targets. 180 days, 27 exercises, 27 targets. Every day, every target I beat. I'm feeling on top of the world. And so this is how I was during the treatment in the US. Lost all my hair, looking really sad, I suppose. Well, I was not feeling sad. I was feeling happy, actually, that I was going through that. And at the end of that 6 months, I was back to being a handsome dude. And I realized that I have completely reinvented my life now. And the best part was I had started doing something else. Again, I reframed the narrative, tried to figure out what can I do? What are the strengths which I have now to leverage, which can give me a wonderful life, which I'm happy with. I'm totally happy with. And I knew that one thing that I wanted to do always was write. I was very good at writing books, at writing blogs and stuff, articles, etc. So I decided to write a book. Well, I don't know, thanks to the chemo that I had or whatever, the rat and rabbit extracts which went into my body, I was in a completely wacky, crazy mood. And the first book that came out was a totally absurd fiction, which is a wonderful fiction for anybody from age 9 to 99. There's humor for anybody in that. It just makes you feel like rolling around and laughing. It was about this, evolved pumpkin which traveled back from the future to save humanity from destruction. Its name was Oops. And then suddenly I started it got published and it became a children's book. I started being invited to schools to deliver talks about this Oops. And I converted these two into science workshops. So imagine explaining neutron star and galaxy and black holes using characters like an evolved pumpkin or a green pig who is unhappy with humanity because we kill green pigs playing Angry Birds. And it became a great hit. And then I was invited to a company to deliver a talk. And I realized that, I have the ability to make people feel positive. So I wrote my second book, which is called From Ouch to Oops. And it became a bestseller from day one. It's my own personal story, laced with a lot of humor and very engaging. And people loved it. And it did very well. But in the back of my mind, I knew that it was not enough. I had set a small target for myself at that time. I changed my reframe my narrative again and said, now I want to touch 1 million lives positively. That's my ambition in life. So when I was looking for that, and this book did, a couple of tens of thousands, that was not enough. I had a long way to go. And luckily at this point in time, I went for my first coach accreditation, ICF accreditation. It was with a group called Neuro Leadership Group. And there was this wonderful lady called Colleen Lightbody who had come from South Africa to train us. She helped me figure out the actual methods of how a coach can function. And honestly, over the next few years, I coached myself, trying to figure out what are the things which I was doing right, what I was not doing right. And I realized that one of the reasons that I could not go up to this great 1 million target was because I was very fragmented. I had lots of interests. I wanted to do everything. And I was not really focusing on that one thing, which is to touch 1 million lives positively. So I started doing that. Now, I was this co-founder of a startup company. I sort of stepped out from that and let others take on the operation. I started focusing only on how do I add maximum value to as many people as possible. And I reframe my narrative once more. Now, instead of adding maximum value to the organization, I realized that what I needed to do was add maximum value to humanity, to as many people as possible, to find out people and help them, and find out ways and means of helping them using the strengths that I have. And I had tremendous amount of strengths, right? I had a great sense of humor. I was privileged, right? My upbringing had made me very privileged. So in spite of a lot of blunders in my life, I was still very privileged. And I could do a lot of things for a lot of people. And I really started focusing on that. And it made me feel very happy in life. The more people I helped, the happier I became. And the easier then it was for me to focus on solution rather than the problem. Because happy mind always looks for solutions rather than wallowing in self-pity. And soon enough, one great thing happened. I had started delivering these great talks, about 50 talks in corporates, 50 talks in schools, about 100,000 people connected. And then I was constantly seeking ways to expand my reach, to reach as many people as possible. And I met this lady who was heading publications for Macmillan, and she wanted me to write my story as a chapter in the 8th grade textbook. I wrote that, and then suddenly my reach went up to 100,000. Every year, 50 to 100,000 kids are reading my story and feeling more positive. In fact, the greatest pleasure I get is when one of those kids reach out to me through social media. Recently, I got a call from a girl from Dharmapuri. She had found my phone number from some Google search and called me and just to talk to me because she had read about me in the story in her textbook. What better pleasure or amazing feeling can one get in life than doing those kind of things? And then I was still lagging behind my 1 million target. The pandemic struck 13 months back, 16 months back. And I had started editing a small magazine for school teachers through Azim Premji Foundation because of my love for science. I was the editor, founding editor for that great magazine called I Wonder. And when the pandemic struck, the foundation wanted to get into healthcare in a big way. They're usually focused on education. They wanted to get into healthcare, and they wanted somebody to lead strategy for that. And they looked at me because I loved science. I had a background in science. And in fact, I had done a lot of courses in Coursera on genetics and immunology, etc. So I was brimming with science fundas. I had lots of connections with scientists across the country because they were part of the editorial team, etc. I had a lot of exposure to doctors in so many hospitals, thanks to having gone through all kinds of disorders. And so I was on top of medicine. I loved mathematics, so mathematical modeling of the pandemic I could understand. So they put me in as leading the strategy for pandemic response for healthcare. And I was instrumental in helping create this entire framework. And I was just, please don't mistake me, I was part of a larger team. And so many people contributed, but I was one of the key enablers. Because I could reach out to so many people, can do it the knowledge, understand the knowledge, put it together in a nice form, and push it down into the organization. Together, we all created this framework of how the foundation would help people. And believe me, we might have saved close to 1 million lives in the last 1.5 years. Because we are working from training of community health workers all the way to setting up ICUs and oxygen plants. So I have, in one fell swoop, managed to touch 1 million lives positively. And I asked myself, what is it that has made me do this? How was I able to reframe my narratives time and again and make it happen? I think the best thing that happened was, number one is that the first changing of narrative was from looking at self, I started looking at others. How do I help others? How do I empower others? The more I did that, the happier the mind gets. And the happier the mind is, the more solution-oriented it gets. So every time I was hit again and again and again with one setback or the other, I could look for, how do I get out of this? How do I maximize this? How do I maximize every moment of my life and make it a happy one? And that really helped. So today, as we speak, I have taken the next step, which is I have figured out that if I want to change the world, to make it a better place, I need to start with the next generation, the young kids. And to make that happen, I need to empower parents with the right tools to create great human beings of their children. So I want happy, resilient, purpose-driven, socially conscious, authentic children to come up. And Active Parenting is a book which gives the right tools to parents to make that happen. So the book is now actually just launched on Amazon for pre-order. 19th of September, the book is going to get launched. And I hope I can touch another 1 million lives positively with that. But as we speak today, I have realized that I now cannot go after touching 1 million lives positively anymore. I need to up my target to 10 million lives positively. And I'm actually looking for a coach who can partner with me and take me through this journey. If anybody is interested, do reach out. Life has not been easy. I've fallen multiple times. Last 5 years back, I had a relapse of the condition slightly. So over the last 5 years, I might have fallen about 50, 60 times. I've fractured bones about 10 times. But the one thing I know is that I'm happy. I'm the happiest and most positive individual I have met in my life. And I'm not being frivolous when I say that. I love my life. I love the fact that I can add value to other people's lives. So I'm trying to maximize and enjoy every moment of my life. So now this is the definition of a coach that I have. Coach is the person who enables you to see every moment for what it truly is, an opportunity to maximize your life, to be truly boundless. And that's the philosophy of boundless, be boundless, which I wanted to share with you. So thank you so much. With that, I shall stop my presentation.
Thank you, Ramji. We are all speechless, actually, and the emotion is picking up to us. And I really see what has gone through your life and how you coached yourself, or you set the goals at every point of time. And the final words of yours, you reframe the word, how to actually create maximize value to the others. And the happiness which generated within that service is what has come up. Pat, before I go to the question and answer session, I want you to reflect on your feelings after hearing from almost a real life story of a coach come a leader, or I would say the business leader, maybe then going through all the patient level of history, and then becoming a coach for himself, and then now a successful again individual. How does it feel for you now?
Yeah, well, Ramji and I had a chance to talk before this to kind of collaborate on what we were going to be talking about. And so I heard the abbreviated version of that story earlier, and it was inspiring then, and it was 5 times as inspiring now. Really, when you think about how you can be your own coach, right? How you can look at reframing your own narrative to get to where he has gotten. It's hugely inspiring. And it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Pat, thank you so much. Coming from you, I take it as a huge compliment. Thank you so much.
Yeah. So, Ramji, there are plenty of questions. I've just picked up certain things which also came to my mind. You told your story that you came from the village, and you even had very less knowledge on English, and then went on to become the top in the IIT and as well in the industry you worked with. So what was that belief, values, or the driving force which actually built in, and where did that come from actually?
I think it came from gratitude. I have tremendous gratitude to my parents for the kind of life they have given me. I mean, my best friends, my coaches, in every way, they have set examples for us to follow. So for me, I wanted to, this life that they have given me, I just wanted to maximize it. And I think that gratitude is still driving me, honestly.
That's something, because now also you are saying that I have certain goals to achieve. So you continuously change your goals or boundless goals. So what, I don't know, do you have any future goals now set for you after you wrote that book, Parenting?
Yeah, so 10 million lives positively is now the first goal. I really hope I can do that, in which case I will just up it to 100 million. But okay. I mean, it really depends on, and I must say, I wouldn't be anywhere near any of this if it weren't for so many people who have enabled and supported me. And that gratitude is what really drives me. So many of my classmates, so many of my relatives, my family, my wife, who took the entire brunt of this entire thing on her shoulder and held my hand literally through the whole journey. I mean, I'm so deeply grateful to all of them.
Thanks, Ramji. So, Pat, there is some questions which has come for you. Narratives do come from experiences and is anchored deeply in oneself. How do we nudge to break free of those chains of this anchor? Again, from I think it has come from Vinita Joseph.
Yeah, so, yeah. Thanks. Thanks for that question. And Ramji, I think pretty much demonstrated, in his experiences, how he did that. Gratitude, as he put it. I think the other thing is always staying curious versus fixed, right? So what else is there out there for me? Why not 10 million lives? Why not? Staying curious and thinking of, well, I'll often work with my clients on, an experiment. What if this happened? What if this happened? Would you be willing to try a little experiment? And so then, we're always practicing something. And if we're practicing staying in that particular narrative or that story and it doesn't serve us, staying curious about what else is out there, I think is also something that's important.
The other one, the punchline, he made it in the end. I'm the happiest, and I'm very happy always. Can you repeat that, Ramji? We would like to hear that again.
That's not very modest, right? I mean, I keep saying that I'm the happiest person I have ever met in my life. I'm the most
Yeah,
positive individual I have met in my life.
fantastic. Fantastic. If we all of us go back and say this 3 times a day, I think we are going to achieve our goals. The other question which has come, Ramji, for you is that how do you actually take care of yourself and also take care of others? Because you talk about maximizing value to others, and the next photo comes that you have broken your hand and you show some fractures and all. So how do you balance this while you have to be stronger to take care of others as well? So how do you think about this, and how do you actually go through this thought process?
So I work on my body continuously, yeah, because I'm always aware that if I stop working out, if I stop my walks, if I stop doing my yoga, etc., I might go into a stage where I will not be able to recover back. I might go on a wheelchair, I might become immobile, and then it will be such a loss, right? I wouldn't be able to do any of these things that I want to do, or it'll be much less effective. So I even though I'm petrified of walking, and there's a chance that every time I go for a walk, I might trip and fall, I still push myself to walk. During this pandemic, it's been very difficult because I had to wear a mask, and mask makes me lose my balance because it covers the eye a little bit. So my wife has actually been walking with me, ensuring that I don't fall. So I keep, for me, it's like, every day is like climbing a mountain. But if you don't climb the mountain, the next day you may not be able to get up. And that one is always there. So.
Right, Pat. But when you were also narrating the experiences of your case studies, one of the things which came out is the coachee being more transparent and talking the things to the coach. And I think Ramji has actually given that experience to us. And how does that help for a coach to take the coachee to the desired aspired goal, which you did for that one of the case study you narrated? How did that happen? What was the process you used to get that maximum reflections, or the what is sort of the baseline of reframing that particular individual?
Yeah. There's really no magic wand, I would say. There's got to be a trust built up, right? Where, I'm non-judgmental. I have no idea what's best for her. I'm not trying to guide her in any particular way. Trying to partner so that she can see things that maybe were not available for her to see before, because she was so firmly in the story that she had. So it's curiosity. It's partnering, I think, is a huge word. It's, I don't know best. I have no idea what's right for her. And I'm very open to hearing her story. I think the other thing is, in terms of coaching, it's helpful to hear others' story if it's part of a team, because she holds a certain narrative, and it's useful to get a 360 impression. Not that not that their stories are right either, but it forms a more complete picture of what might be going on. And it can help me be a little bit curious about maybe particularly, questioning her around parts of her story and what it means for her. So trust, I think, and curiosity might be the two ingredients.
Perfect. So Ramji, one of the questions, which was maybe some of the questions which has come, is how do you go back to that day where you were depressed for 3 hours or 4 hours, and how did you come out of that, and how you reflect that today? And somebody asked whether the ex-boss apologized to you now. Okay, there's a question there, but how do you reflect that instance, and how do you see that today?
My ex-boss and I continued to be the best of friends, because I knew that she did not have too much of a choice in what was happening. Okay. It was an organization decision taken from headquarters in the US, and it was maybe the right decision for the organization, by the way. So there was no judgment on my side against her.
Wow. Okay.
And And what really helped me, and I think it has helped me multiple times in life, and I've had many other disorders on the side, by the way. And each time that happens, what I do is I try not to just let my mind dwell on why me, why did this happen to me. That is a complete waste of time, right? So I try to, and obviously it happens, right? To all of us it happens, and sometimes just out of the blue it happens, right? I'm sitting in a flight and going somewhere, and then suddenly it hits me saying that I can't even put on my button, and then I feel like crying, actually. But then the idea is not to focus on that. Idea is to focus on all the things that you have. And I think that really helped. I think the fact that my family was around me, they were so loving and so helpful, and the fact that I had so many things going for me, and I could just focus on solutions and how to leverage my strengths rather than feeling bad about what I don't have. I guess it just comes with practice, actually. Over a period of time, you keep doing that, you become better and better at it.
I think leveraging strengths is always coming when you are talking, and it's in action as well. One of the things for me, it came to as a very important learning to take away from here is taking that self accountability in driving the actions where you set the goals. I've seen in the last 20 minutes or 25 minutes, your narrative story is all about not only setting the goals, but setting that self accountability towards that. There are some more questions, but we are out of time. So I would like audience to say that we will take your questions and then surely connect with Ramji and Pat and get you back those answers. And Ramji has also asked for the volunteer of coaches to support him in some of the books. I hope you can contact him. So with this, we would like to thank Pat Matthews and Ramji for the wonderful subject on session on reframing the narratives in both personal and professional growth. And Ramji's example is actually the topic, and is a proven living example for us. Wish you all the best for both of you. Ramji, particularly to you from the ICF Chennai Charter Chapter, as well as from the ICF Global. We wish you all the best, and let us know how we can also help you to achieve your dreams as well as our dreams. Thank you, both of you. Thank you, Pat, for coming to us and then doing this beautiful speech once again. And we will look forward you to come again and again in our sessions in the future as well. So thank you, both of you.
Thank you, Aravindan.